Growing up in England as a kid, I was no stranger to the occasional visit to a British pub. And I soon got to learn that my dad's favourite beer was Ringwood Best. And when I got old enough to drink myself, well, I gave it a try. And oh my goodness, I did not enjoy it. I much preferred the yellow, fizzy European lagers like Stella Artois. But tastes change over time, and in the end, I came around to agreeing with my dad about this beer. So today, I am going to brew a British Best Bitter. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to show you some tips that I've learned in using this Clawhammer supply controller. Hi, I'm Martin Keane. I am taking the Homebrew Challenge to brew 99 beers in 99 weeks. And today, Dad, I'm happy to tell you I'm brewing a Best Bitter. So let's get straight into the ingredients. The interesting thing about these British bitters that I'm doing is we have ordinary bitter, best bitter, and then strong bitter. They actually are all the same beer, just with different strengths. So I could just take my ordinary bitter recipe, scale it up a bit, and I'd have a best bitter. That would be a little boring though, so I am going to change things up a bit. Now, like the ordinary bitter, I'm going to brew a half-size batch. So I'm going to brew about 2.5 gallons of beer here. That means that the recipe ingredients that I'm going to tell you about, I'll tell you again in percentages rather than in actual weights. So you can scale this up to whatever amount or whatever volume you're brewing. Now, ultimately, this beer we want to get to 1046 by the end of brew day. And we're going to get there with the following mixture of ingredients. For my base malt, I have Maris Otter, and this is going to make up 89% of my total grist. Then there are these specialty malts to add. Now in here, 8% of Crystal 80 is going to be my next specialty malt. And then my final specialty malt, it's a little controversial. It's within the style guidelines, but it's not something you would always see in a best bitter recipe. And that is 3% of pale chocolate malt. Why pale chocolate malt? Well, that's what Ringwood Best uses. And if it's good enough for them, now, I've been brewing on my Clawhammer supply system now for a few brews, and I'm starting to get the hang of it. And I've had fantastic support from Clawhammer supply, particularly Emmett. Thank you so much for answering all of my questions. Now, what I wanted to do in this video was talk a little bit about the controller for that system and some of the tips that I have learned. Now, Clawhammer supply do provide their own tips video for using the controller. I will link to that. But these are 3 things that I've discovered that are helping me with my brew. Now, auto-tune is one of those pro settings that I really like about this system. So think about how these electric systems heat up water. There's an electrical element there, and that cycles on and off sufficiently to build up to a certain mash temperature. Now, the amount of power that it needs to get the water from one mash temperature to another depends very much upon the volume of water. So to heat up and maintain, say, 7 gallons of water at 152 Fahrenheit is going to need a different amount of power than to maintain, say, 4 gallons of water at that same 152 Fahrenheit. And that's what auto-tune does. So to do that, first of all, so we're going to hold down the set button for 3 seconds and then press it again to get to OP. I'm going to press AM to select that. Now I'm going to move into the AT mode for auto tune, and then I'm going to hold and press down set. So now we are in auto tune mode, and we're just going to leave it here on auto tune mode until that stops flashing AT, and at that point it will have calibrated. And you can just notice here, by the way, that already, although I'd set the mash temperature to 150, it had already overshot to 155 Fahrenheit, And that's again because right now the system is calibrated to work with 7 gallons of water, and I only want to work with about 4.5 gallons. Auto tune is complete. You can see now that when this heating element goes on, it's really flickering between 149.9 and 150. Now this next tip, it's a little bit silly, but my goodness, it just saves a little bit of time and frustration. So I want to change this now to say 152 Fahrenheit because that's the temperature I'm mashing at. What I was doing is I'd press the down arrow to say I want to change temperature, and then I would start to hold up and wait for it to get to whatever temperature I wanted. That's fine if you're only going a few degrees, but if we're going from say 152 to mashing out at 170, it's sort of holding down and pressing the button. What I hadn't realized is that when you press this down arrow, you get this little flashing cursor here, which you can move across, and then this will adjust this number here. So if I press up, now it's saying 152, I press set. So I actually only needed to press 3 buttons there to get it to 152 instead of holding it down. Easy when you know how. Now the last thing I wanted to show you was related to temperature calibration. When I first got this system, I calibrated the temperature by getting this up to boiling point and then seeing what my thermometer setting read as, and then made a calibration adjustment on the controller here. What I'm going to do now is actually calibrate based on mash temperature rather than on boil temperature, because I want my thermometer to be giving me the right reading at mash time most of all. I know when it's boiling, I don't need it to tell me that. Now my thermometer is showing closer to 148, so this is actually under-reporting a little bit. That's no problem, I can adjust that. So to do that, I hold down set, press the AM button, and now this SC value I'm going to raise by 2. So I'm going to move the cursor across here, raise by 2, hold down set. You'll see the temperature has now raised to 148, and that mirrors the actual temperature that I'm seeing here on my thermometer. So with the grains added, I am going to start recirculating, and I'm going to be mashing at 152 Fahrenheit, looking to get to a pre-boil gravity of about 1031. Now, Best Bitter actually can be quite a hoppy beer. It's really a pale ale in American terms. So the way that I'm going to make this beer is I'm going to aim for 35 IBUs. Now I'm going to do that using, first of all, my bittering hop. This is UK Fuggle hops, and they're going in at 60 minutes, and I'm going to get about 27 IBUs from that. With the volume that I'm brewing, that equates to 3/4 of an ounce. Then at 10 minutes from the end, I'm going to add East Kent Golding hops. Beersmith is showing me this will give me 8 IBUs, but I'm adding them in purely for their aroma and flavor characteristics, and for my batch size that means half an ounce. Once again, chilling with such a small amount of wort is a joy. I'm already down to my target temperature, which is 68 Fahrenheit. It took about 5 minutes. So next thing to do is to get this beer into the fermenter and add the yeast. I am using my same yeast as I used for the ordinary bitter, which is London Ale Yeast 3. The beer has come out on the money at 1046. I'm fermenting it in here at a temperature of 68 Fahrenheit. Leave it there for a couple of weeks, then give it a taste. We're back, and we promise no more fake British accents this time.
Yeah, we'll speak normally this time.
just the real British accents.
Yes.
So we have another very popular beer style here in Best bitter. Bit of a family favourite, this one. So I'm going to be interested to get your take on how this differs from just plain old ordinary bitter.
Yes.
So let's take a look at this beer. This came out, by the way, at 4.5%, so it is a little bit stronger than the ordinary bitter. Any difference in colour that you notice?
Is this one darker?
A tad, just a tad, yeah.
More darker and yeah, more brown and got more amber to it, I guess, than the other one.
Yeah, I think it is a very sort of coppery colour. A little darker than the other one. Let's see if we get any difference on the nose.
Well, I remember saying that the last one like had just like a smorgasbord of smells to it. Like you can actually pick one out, but this one smells a lot more like malty.
To me, it smells so British. It smells like you've gone into the English pub and, you know, that sort of beery smell that you get when you walk in.
Yeah.
It's just this reminds me of football on at the pub. All right, okay, let's go for the taste.
Okay. It tastes very English.
Yeah.
Yeah, it tastes a lot more English than the other one.
Yeah, so the difference that I noticed, I think, with this beer over the ordinary bitter is I added a bit of darker malt to it, the pale chocolate malt, which you see reflected in the colour.
Okay.
It's only a very small amount, but I think it really comes through.
I can taste it. It's very subtle, but it's definitely there. It's quite heavy, I feel, though. Like it's kind of a heavier beer.
It's definitely heavier than the ordinary bitter.
Yeah.
But I think still very dangerously drinkable.
Yes, it's pretty tasty.
I'm afraid we couldn't resist. So, Lauren, have a jolly good day.
And down the hatchet. So stupid. I just see your likes like going down.